Timcast IRL will be live in Miami with Patrick Bet David, Donald Trump Jr., Matt Gaetz, and Luke Rudkowski. Join us there. Get your tickets by clicking the link in the description below or by going to timcast.com. I'm going to pull up this here video clip you gave to me earlier, Ian. This is from Colin Rugg on Twitter, and it's actually quite amazing. He says CNN is now listing out all of President Joe Biden's lies, as the New York Post and Washington Post are also ramping up their criticism of Biden. Weird how they all changed their tune at the same time. Here are the lies CNN now wants to talk about. Witnessing a bridge collapse, grandfather died days prior to his birth, Amtrak conductor conversations, being in New York the day after 9/11, being arrested in a civil rights protest, driving an 18-wheeler, visiting Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh synagogue where people were killed. Let me just play the clip for you from CNN. If it plays. There we go.
I don't know if it's similar things, but he's sort of told some stories that don't line up quite like this.
Don't line
this
up.
This president has a pattern at this point of either inventing or embellishing stories.
Oh, come on.
It's breaking news from CNN. They're figuring it out.
3 times in one speech last month alone, he claimed he had witnessed a bridge collapse in Pittsburgh when he actually showed up about 6 hours later. He claimed that his grandfather had died just days before he was born himself at the same hospital. In fact, his grandpa died more than a year before in a different state, not the same hospital. And he also repeated a favorite false story that I and others have debunked over and over again about a supposed conversation with an Amtrak train conductor he was friends with, who was actually deceased at the time the conversation would have had to take place. And that's not all. There are some more serious ones in my view. Previously in his presidency, he claimed at one point he'd been arrested during a civil rights protest when, in other versions of the story, he just said an officer had taken him home from a protest. He said he had visited the Pittsburgh synagogue where worshipers were killed in a 2018 mass shooting. In fact, he'd actually spoken to the rabbi, but never went. And he's made a whole bunch of others, too. He said at one point, Republicans like to bring this up, he said that he used to drive a tractor trailer, he used to drive an 18-wheeler. Never happened. The White House later clarified he used to drive a school bus at one point as a job briefly. School bus, of course, not an 18-wheeler. So whatever his intentions, whether it's foggy memory about stuff that's going on decades ago or deliberate embellishment,
foggy memory
is an unfortunate pattern.
I love this. I love that Colin Rugg said, weird how they all changed their tune at the same time. Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's weird, huh?
Old conspiracy theorists. The media is working together to protect the Democrats and Joe Biden. New conspiracy theory. They're all coming after Joe Biden at the same time because they're trying to get him out of office.
I don't hate it, though, as a theory. I mean, I think part of it is...
I still make it lines up.
It's the same thing because they would do whatever they could to protect him, except apparently he is the out guy now. I mean, it is a sign that the establishment that Joe Biden relies on to continue to control the Democratic Party and to stay in the White House no longer wants him, which I think we've known for a long time. That's why he would say, yes, I'm going to run again. And the DNC and his own press secretary would be like, oh, they're still mulling it over. They're still thinking about it. I mean, they have been out of sync for a long time. And I think it's because Joe Biden is declining. Yeah. And I think that they know they can't actually get a second term. And Kamala Harris is unpopular. I mean, the thing is, Joe Biden has given us some of the best lies, the bold-faced lies from this man. There was one today where he said he used to teach at University of Pennsylvania. Do you think we haven't been paying attention to your entire career? Like, when do you think you did that?
Baby. Where does that come from? Because I've heard him say that before, that he taught at Pennsylvania.
Somewhere in the deep recess of his brain.
Was he like an assistant adjunct?
No, dude. Look, 40 years ago, this was normal in politics, and he would never get called out for it. He stole that speech from the Irish guy or whatever, that Irish politician, I think it was.
It's an MP, yeah.
Yeah, and it was in the 80s, and he's like, he had basically dropped out of the race because of it.
Well, they caught him for that, yeah.
But he never got caught with anything else.
Well, so I feel bad. Like, I look at him and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad because,
feel bad for him.
Well, he has been lying and he's never been corrected. And so in his mind, everything that he said is true. I mean, like, he doesn't think that he's lying.
I'm sure.
And that is the power of, like, this, like, literally living in one of the most ironclad bubbles anybody could be in. Mm-hmm. Because not only, I'm sure, is his family reinforcing it, but all of the biggest mechanisms of communication are validating what he says, or at least not challenging him. So why would you ever doubt yourself?
Yeah, I asked this the other day. He did something. It's impossible to remember because he does so much stuff. But I had said, is this dementia or is he lying? And it actually could be both.
Right.
Maybe he is so used to lying that now that he's slipping mentally, his lies are getting bolder and less. He doesn't have to hide them. He doesn't have to blend them in with the facts.
They're becoming less cohesive and coherent.
Well, consequences change your behavior. And there's been no consequences.
Well, also, he's 80. He's thinking,
Also,
and you know what he's doing after he leaves the press conference? someone who works for him is like, Mr. Biden, you just told all those people you were a teacher at Penn State. Was it Penn State or whatever?
University of Pennsylvania.
University of Pennsylvania. And he goes, dumb pricks. And then he gets in the car.
He's like, make it true. I'll see you later.
Or he'll be like, no, I didn't. And then they're like, geez, he'll fire me if I talk back to him.
No, it's
Or he'll beat me if
I
this
think
is-
the movie was Little Miss Sunshine. Could be wrong. Where the grandfather's doing heroin. And he's like, I'm an old man. I don't care anymore. It's like, that's where Joe Biden might be at. He's like, he probably gets in the car and they're just like, well, here's a bunch of bad stuff you did. And he's like, so what? He's like, I'm past the average life expectancy.
He's like, this
Later.
isn't my problem. This is y'all's problem.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I'll see you later. I mean, and that is kind of it. I can't imagine being his staff right now and having to be like, oh, well, what he meant by I drove a truck was actually that he drove a school bus. And we all mix up the word for truck. Or when he was at, I can't remember what the event was, but he was speaking publicly and there was that congresswoman who had just died in a car accident and he was asking for her and they're like,
Oh my
she was
gosh,
just
yes.
on his mind.
Right.
It's not that he didn't realize or completely forgot that she's not alive anymore.
Yeah.
He was just thinking about her. Like they will spin anything they can to make this work. But at a certain point, there are too many loose threads for them to weave a blanket out of.
Yeah, if his son wasn't like deviant, I think they would lie until he left office. But because his son is just so viciously erratic, you can't hide it.
Yeah. I'm like convinced, my favorite personal conspiracy theory is that, so Hunter Biden is married again. He's married to a South African film director and they met and got married within 10 days. Which I love romance too, but that seems weird. And they have a very young son. And I'm totally convinced it's a convenience marriage so that when people Googled like Hunter Biden youngest child, that kid would come up instead of his
Navy.
instead of Navy, the one he had out of wedlock and he's had all this drama with. Like, I think they were trying to make it so that he was like a nice family man and we don't understand. And there are so many grandchildren, you mix them all up. Meanwhile, the Biden family was just completely not acknowledging what was happening until they had to 2 months ago and they released a statement through People.
Do you know if they got a prenup, he and this new wife of his?
I don't. I kind of assume they have one because I think they're pretty standard when you have that much money, but I don't know for sure.
What a sad family.
Yeah,
Yes.
really.
I'm just like imagining what it must be like to grow up there.
Yeah.
You know, like when I grew up, it was pancakes in the morning and mashed potatoes and we had Dominic's was our supermarket. And so we'd have like, you know, crummy little T-bones, but my family did what they could. And we'd go outside and play, and I had to come home when the street lights turned on. I could not imagine this family.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I respect the traumas are awful, right? Losing a mom and a sister, but outside of that, it's like Arrested Development.
I mean, I have also lost my mom at a young age, and I have never done crack cocaine.
Wait,
You
what?
know what I mean? Like,
Hold
I'm
on.
just saying, it doesn't give you an excuse. You can actually be okay. I think that losing a parent is, you know, and I can speak to it really clearly. Like, it changes your whole life, and you live with it forever. But, you know, at least I haven't made any money off of it the way he has. It would maybe be better if I had.
It's interesting because, you know, when you look at parental loss, you look at things like divorce, and by a couple different studies will show that kids suffer more post-divorce than they do the loss of a parent through death. And a lot of that is because, you know, you lose a parent to death. My husband's mother was killed when he was 16, and what happens is everybody surrounds you. They remember together. You mourn with them. You're not alone in your suffering, right? And actually, it is easier to get over and beyond that kind of tragic loss than it is, let's say, if somebody cheats and leaves because the child internalizes that and says, it must be my fault, right? When the parent dies, they don't go, okay, well, she, you know, Hunter didn't go, okay, my mom wanted to leave me, right? But when you lose a parent in other ways, very often the child will internalize it as, I'm the reason.
Why is that? I don't know. I don't understand.
Well, think about it. Like when, for example, parents divorce, let's say it's a no-fault divorce, and the parents just go their separate ways, the child is experiencing the death of their family. Now they don't have their mom and dad in their home every single day, seeing both of them, saying goodnight to both of them. They don't have 100% of mom and dad in their world, which is kind of like a kid's food. Mother love, father love is like social emotional staples in their diet. So now they're splitting time, or very often kids lose contact with their non-custodial parent, usually their dad, often within 2 years. And so they're kind of being starved of what they need. But for them, they couldn't figure out why, especially in these low conflict marriages, which is the majority of no-fault divorces. So the kid goes, okay, this wrecked my life. I'm starved of one or both of my parents, and I'm suffering. And I can't put my finger on why this happened. They weren't throwing plates. They weren't yelling at each other. Everything seemed fine. This was out of the blue. it must be me. And most kids of divorce at some point go, I must be the problem.
You know, when my parents got divorced right around when I was like 13 to 14, and I did not experience that in the least bit.
Good.
And, you know, my parents did the thing like, we want you to know this is not your fault. I'm like, no, I get it.
Good.
You're like, I didn't think it was.
Well, I was like, I know it's not. I was like, you guys are just going, you're arguing. I don't know, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I think me and my siblings were all like just particularly pragmatic for whatever reason.
Did you stay in touch with both your parents afterwards?
Yeah, my dad was only a couple blocks away.
That's good.
So he was still coming over to the house. My parents still got along. They're just like, my parents are both very pragmatic, reasonable, fairly stoic.
Yeah.
So despite their arguments and which led to divorce, they were like, we're going to work together and understand there's no point in wasting time fighting about things. We're getting divorced. Do what you got to do, and don't like each other, but you know.
You still had access to both, and you
Yeah.
didn't have to deal with high conflict, like being the go-between between warring mom and dad or anything.
No, yeah, not really. No,
That's good.
I think my parents were just like, there's no point. Like, it got to a point where, and it probably rubs off on me. Hey, yelling isn't doing anything for us, so let's just get divorced, and then we'll facilitate whatever we need to facilitate in a reasonable and, you know, like studious manner, or not studious, but like stoic manner.
Good. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad that they were able to keep it together post-divorce.
Yeah, I
Well,
imagine
that's why I asked,
if
'cause,
one
like-
of them bounced and you never saw them, maybe
Right.
then like years later, you start to wonder if I'm the reason. Like if you lose touch with one of them, it might not happen all at once. Basically, it takes.
But
some time.
that's why I asked, because like I can't relate to that experience. Like my parents didn't just ditch me, right? They got a divorce, but my dad was a couple blocks away, and my parents still interacted with each other and everything. And
Yeah.
But I think that's not true for a lot of kids, at
Yeah.
least you know,
Right.
the anecdotal experience.
I had an
have.
experience where I was with someone that attempted suicide, and I felt like it was my fault. That was weird to go through that. Like I really felt like I could have done something different, and I probably could have done something different, but it's
Ian,
not didn't make
I
it
like
my fault.
I like you. Deep feeler, tender man. All good men are tender men. I'm not kidding. All good men are tender men.
The warrior poet, you got to have a big sword and know when not to use it.
Yeah. But I mean, I just think good men break over the right things.
like when you're watching a movie and a dog gets killed.
Yes. Oh my gosh. My husband cries more than me.
Yeah, that's like the
But
one.
he's a good man.
The one thing that makes me not want to watch a movie if there's like a needless dog death.
Yeah, true.
But that's why John Wick did so well, because those writers knew exactly what they were like. We're gonna make an action movie where men cry, and it's like right when the movie starts, like his dog, it was given to him by his wife. Like, I'll kill him. Ah.
Yeah.
And that movie's amazing.
But if sadness, the problem is good to feel it because it's like gets me back to normal. But if it derails me and I'm like, oh, I give up because it's like it hurts so bad. What's the point? I don't want to go through that again. That's when it becomes like a bit of a roadblock.
No, that's because you're not meant to be alone. Like you need other people to help you through that.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.